Glow Yard. Hey, we made it to summer. Let's get it. We made it to the finals, but we out for the summer. What an exciting season, what's next, I wonder. Relle and King with the glow, y'all done playback. When October comes, he said, Nico, run it back. We made it to the storm and we almost got the chip. We had some tough games, but now we ain't quit. We saw them boys come together, others fall apart. But most important thing, we saw our teams got heart. Luka making records and Kyrie making moves. When there's breaking news, Relle and King got it for you. When you wanna see some fan perspective views, when you on YouTube, make you know who to shoot. Whether you wanna talk or vent or who's who, just keep it respectful to my Glow Yard crew. At WTN, just to speak to the panel, and welcome to the We Talk Mavs channel. Nico, run it back. Nico, run it back. Nico, run it back. When October comes, he said.
YouTube, Glow Yard Gang, MFFL, podcast listeners all over the globe, guys. Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of We Talk Mavs, guys, where we talk Dallas Mavs from a fan's perspective. We definitely, members only edition. So, man, listen, man, we definitely appreciate y'all, man, joining us this morning for another brand spanking new episode. It's your boys, Relle and King, back with another one. Listen, man, we got a good one for y'all today. Got a special guest in the building. We're going to bring him up here in a second. But listen, before we do all that, man, listen, if you guys can do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, if you're into all things Dallas Mavericks, you're definitely in the right place. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join us here. And also, do us a huge favor, y'all. It does not cost you anything. Free $99. Listen, guys, hit that like button. Go ahead and hit that like button, man. Help us build that algorithm up, man, to find more Mav fans like yourselves to join the Glow Yard gang. All right, King, man. Like I said, we got a special guest in the building, man. A lot of y'all already know who this guy is. We're going to bring him up here. But before we do that, let's give a quick second to show some love to the sponsors of the channel, man.
Before we continue, we want to give a special shout out to FANATICS for hooking the channel up with a personalized link for you guys and ladies to get all of your official NBA Dallas Mavericks merchandise and apparel. If you're interested in helping the channel at all, please scan the QR code on the screen or check out the link in the description. We appreciate all of the continued support, and big thanks go out to FANATICS once more for hooking us up over here at We Talk Mavs.
Yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen. It's never too late to cop some brand new Mav merch. All you got to do is scroll on down to the description box. We definitely have a link there for you guys to click on to go on to FANATICS and copy some brand new Mav merch before the season starts. Now's the time. Perfect time. Got training camp around the corner, so be a perfect time, man, to copy some new Mav merch. All right, King, let's get to it, man. Let's bring up our guests. Listen, man, we got the, he's huge, man. When you got to put the in front of their name, we got the Grant Afseth on, man, from Dallas Hoops Journal on with us, man. A lot of y'all already know who he is from Twitter. You know, the famous Mav writer here with us today. What's up with you, Grant?
Not much. Definitely a boring part of the NBA calendar, but we have a lot to definitely talk about before it heats up. About a month, actually exactly a month before that media day hits, and the training camp the next day in Las Vegas. So it's coming up fast, but right now very boring, which is a perfect time to talk.
My bad, Grant. Forgot to do this. Got to work me in the right way, man. Work me in the right way.
That was my fault.
But yeah, speaking of which, man. So, are you going to be in Vegas?
Yeah, I'll be there for sure. Yeah.
Okay, man. I wonder if the Mavs. Do you think the Mavs will have a? I probably doubt it. If they're going to be in Vegas, it's kind of like how they were when they were in Dubai last year. So they're probably not going to have a what they call that
fan jam.
Yeah, fan jam. You're not going to have a fan jam, Marty.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything about that or heard anything about it yet. I think that would be in the information that they kind of sent out like ahead of time, like kind of previewing what the preseason will look like. But definitely, Might have to ask about that one. I think it's been a while since a lot of people ask about it every time. So definitely might have to ask around and see an answer for sure.
That sounds like a no.
Yeah, it probably sound like a no. I've been saying, I figured as soon as we heard they were going to be in Vegas, I was like, yeah. I told King, I said, I don't think they're having it this year. I love going to those. I go to them almost every year. And I think, like I said, last year they didn't have it. They were in Dubai. And of course, this year they're going to be in Vegas. But it's all good, though.
They're free, right?
Grant,
They're usually free?
yeah, it's free. Absolutely free. Yeah. Parking and everything is free.
Nice.
Grant, let me start off with this, man. We're gonna take you back. We're gonna start from the end of last season. What was your initial or your overall thoughts of the team going into the offseason after what they did last year, going into the finals?
Yeah, I think definitely my impression was they needed more three-point shooting, but you don't want to sacrifice a lot of what you basically succeeded with if you're the Mavericks defensively, because they really found their rhythm after that trade deadline period. They had a rim protector on the court at all times as a potential option. That was huge for them, but they also had multiple on-ball defensive options with PJ Washington, Derek Jones. But the playoff run really showed at times teams are going to try to leave one of those guys open, and you don't necessarily want two guys like that offensively, ideally, where there's inconsistency with the shooting results. And so ideally you would like, my impression was, to upgrade from one of those players. PJ, I would have preferred to have kept if I was playing armchair GM, and then probably find a better shooter at the 3 spot, and ideally not sacrifice too much defensively to be able to get that done. And I think they were able to do that with Klay Thompson. I think, I watched a lot of his defensive clips. He's not as impactful as he once was, like in his athletic prime by any means, especially after 2 major lower body injuries. But I do think he's kind of being a little too discredited defensively, if that makes sense. Like, I think he can still guard. He takes the challenge of guarding tough matchups. He's not like one of those offensive stars who used to be an elite defender that rarely guards actual top players. Like, he definitely does take on the challenge of that. So that's something that you definitely would like to see. I think not as quick, obviously, as Derek Jones. He was very, impactful, getting around screens and, really suffocating some top offensive players with, blocks against like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. You usually don't see players able to pull that off. So I think there'll be, some drop off in the on-ball defensive area, but definitely curious to see as a coaching staff what they're going to look to do with their schemes, having different personnel.
I'll go. I think Klay, he hasn't had a Derek Lively type behind him in a second. So, I mean, no disrespect to Draymond. He's awesome. He's one of the greatest defenders of all time, in my opinion. But as far as what they do it differently. And to have a Derek Lively behind you, you could see how it impacted DJJ last year after the, having Lively in the lineup and not having him in the lineup. But my question to you is basically, with all that happening in the finals run and us losing, what would your grade be with the offseason as far as the Mavs and their entire, between Najee, Quentin Grimes, Klay, and Spencer Dinwiddie? What would you grade it overall?
Yeah, I think the late offseason move with Spencer Dinwiddie makes it definitely a little stronger. That's a very great value signing. Someone who's already familiar with, not a ton of games played with Kyrie, but definitely some experience and familiarity with both players, adding depth and another option to kind of step up as a veteran if there's injuries, which, there were at times, last season with multi-game absences, for Kyrie, especially when like random stuff happens, like Dwight Powell landing on your leg when you try to finish at the rim, like random stuff will happen. So, that I think that kind of pushed up the grade, for me, because you still have alternative options on the roster to be able to put out different skill sets like Dante Exum or Jaden Hardy. So I think I would give them an A-, especially because they didn't have to overpay to replace Derek Jones. They paid basically the same annual salary that he ended up signing elsewhere for. So I think, Najee Marshall, I really like his skill set. I think they do different things. They're very, very impactful defensively, but they do it in a different way, if that makes sense. Like, I think he's a better capable, like, defensive player against bigger framed, more like power players. Like, I think in the finals, Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, me personally would prefer someone like a Najee Marshall guarding those players as opposed to, Derek Jones with, all due respect to him. So I think if you're thinking in that respect, you don't want to think too much of like, how can we beat the Celtics? Because you don't know if that's ever going to be your predicament again. And they could end up having their own problems and you're facing a different team in the long run if you do manage to reach the finals again. But I definitely think that makes them a better equipped team to handle the Celtics.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you don't want to end up like Minnesota where they put all their chips in the basket for Denver. Then they get past Denver. It's like, okay, now what?
Sure.
I was just about to ask you, man, who you thought was better. Well, I guess just in general, who you thought was better out of Najee Marshall and DJJ?
Well, I think it honestly depends on like they're very similar in terms of like I think the tier of player that they're in. I think when you get into that, it's mostly about what your team is around them. Like I think Derek Jones checked a lot of unique boxes. Like for example, if you are going to have a defense cross match against you where they're putting their center on a wing like Derek Jones, and they're putting a wing on Derek Lively. What you want to have is that screener option that can get downhill and be, a little threatening to the defense in the middle of the floor. And I think the athleticism as a roller and short roll guy that Derek Jones provided, I think that definitely was an asset to have. But I also think, Najee Marshall has the ability to make plays in that regard. And I think having the most blitzed offensive player in the NBA last season with Luka, and also having other talent, I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to attack with an advantage. And that's a skill set that he really thrives on. So I think that is a little bit of an enhancement. He's not the above the rim player that obviously that like a Derek Jones is, because I really think very few players are. But I think that skill set will thrive. And I think, his shooting results, definitely curious to see how that sustains, because in his career, he's been a little up and down. I think there's plenty of optimism, or reason for optimism, I should say, from last year. Looking at his shot profile as well, like I'm sure the percentage of quality shots, open shots, and things of that nature is going to go up for him, as opposed to having to take tougher ones. Playing alongside all of that talent, especially with Derek Lively already establishing himself as a very legitimate like vertical lob threat and interior play finisher. The defense is going to have to fear everybody on the floor around them. So definitely think, whether he's with the bench unit or playing a plug and play with some of the starters, like the superstars at times, I definitely think he's in a position to be in a successful role.
I agree. You touched on Spencer Dinwiddie a little bit, so I'm going to move towards another guy. We saw that the Mavs moved on from Josh Green this offseason, went a different way and direction. And you said earlier that Spencer Dinwiddie being signed, or being, I guess, signed later, made the move like an A- in your opinion, because we got another ball handler. With that being said, do you feel like this is kind of a make or break season for Jaden Hardy?
I think it can be to an extent, but I think if he's in a position where this team really, like coming off a finals run, thinks that they need to favor veterans, perhaps there could be a random opportunity that we don't really know about opening up in like the trade market in the future as well. Like, because I guess it would be different if I guess he's like in his fourth or fifth year. I still think he's in that window of opportunity to where I think his best chance will be probably, if you're just looking at it right now, probably on a different team where he has more, leeway to, kind of take a higher volume of shots, run more pick and roll, and things of that nature. But that's easier for me to say as well, as someone who's looking at hypotheticals from a surface level, not like, all right, let's really hammer down what team truly has that room for this player, because it's a lot harder for guards, especially with that skill set, that are like, microwave scorers or things of that nature. So I'd have to really like nail down like, all right, landing spots for Jaden Hardy. But I think if I had to guess, that opportunity would be probably best elsewhere. And I think that's probably been the case since they had the opportunity to trade for Kyrie Irving. You're not going to necessarily be able to predict that stuff, but having two superstars in the backcourt, that's a very challenging reality as a young player. I mean, you can learn a lot from those guys, but you're not going to supplant those guys by any means. And, you're probably in a position to soak up that knowledge and maybe solidify yourself as a sixth man, but probably in your career, if you want to have that goal of starting and being a impact player in that regard, you're best suited to probably take that knowledge and talk about how great your time in Dallas was and how you learned from all these great players, but apply it in a bigger, role somewhere else for sure.
Can I continue for 1 second, Relle?
Oh, yeah, good.
As far as Jaden Hardy and that statement you just said, wouldn't it be best, though, you feel, though, the team would have to try to showcase him this year, though, to try to get at least some type of value, so to decide if he's going to be that 6-man microwave type of guy that can be here and get buckets off the bench for us. So if he's going to have values, if they're going to trade him somewhere else, or maybe give him a contract in the offseason and, eventually trade him. You got to have something, right, where you get nothing.
Right.
Yeah, I think to an extent when he, if you look at his greater, the 30,000 foot view perspective of his career, he kind of entered the NBA, I guess you could say, at a undervalued position where, he's getting drafted as that steal in the second round. So I think he's kind of been from behind, if you will, on trade value, up to this point, because he hasn't necessarily had the ability to dispel any sort of translate to the NBA in a consistent winning role situation. I think he's shown flashes, but it's a little different when it's he's kind of getting that random chance in the Western Conference Finals. That was a great flash, but it's not that was the entire playoff run. So I'm not trying to say that he can't do that, but I'm just saying that if you're kind of haggling in a trade discussion, you're well, I mean, that's great. That you're going to always try to take that contrarian sort of view to talk it down and be well, was he in your rotation all year? Was he in the playoff rotation the whole time? That's, I guess you could say that's great that he showed that, but I'm not trading for flashes. I'm trading for, but you're at the back of your mind, if you're that opposing GM, you're probably if you do believe in him, you're yeah, I'm just trying to talk this down for sure. So I think that's probably the challenge you're going to always face. But as a team where your focus has shifted or your reality has shifted, when they were acquiring him, it was a very different set of circumstances. Obviously, you lost Jalen Brunson, you're trying to find a talent that could pop, but then now you have Kyrie Irving. So I think you probably just don't stress too much about it. If you're the front office of this team, you're probably we coming off the finals. If we can get something fantastic, but we can't sacrifice the immediate floor of our regular season success for a percentage, scale of minorly improving a trade value of one of these, players on the bench. So I think that's probably where it's at. He'll definitely, I think, not be, not, I guess you could say, buried too deep without any possibility of earning an opportunity. Because I think, Spencer Dinwiddie was a late off-season guy. So I know we are familiar with him and he has made an impact and, there's that veteran presence. But if Jaden Hardy, the same with in the Omax, there's always room for someone to just crush it and exceed our expectations. And I guess you could say create that roster problem where you're wow, this guy really got after it this summer. And I guess we kind of jumped the gun. We didn't need that other option. So, he can definitely, put that career trajectory in his own hands if he just is too good to deny in his own right, which, we'll have to definitely wait and see with all these guys because it's always easy to talk about it in August, and then a lot changes. If you think about it, what we were talking about last year at this time, I remember before, the Abu Dhabi games, the only confirmed starter was Grant Williams, and he's not even on the team anymore. So definitely going to be a fascinating. I'm always fascinated by all the little ins and outs of the roster and everything. So curious to see how they manage that and how it plays out for sure.
Let me ask you this, Grant, because we started talking about roster and where everybody fits. Well, one thing with Jaden Hardy, I know we have now we added another guard, like you said, with Spencer Dinwiddie. Well, I guess I can just go back to this question. Where do you see Spencer Dinwiddie fitting in with this team? Do you see him maybe taking that Dante Exum role this year, or do you still see them using Dante Exum and then you're just gonna kind of sprinkle in Spencer Dinwiddie? Because I've been telling folks I think that they brought Spencer in here to take that Dante Exum role, but I'm just want to kind of get your opinion on that.
Quentin Grimes, don't forget about him as well.
There's a lot of good problems to have, I guess you could say, for this roster, and I think it's hard for me to necessarily say at this point what the direct plan is, but I do think if you look at what their roster was last year, they did not have that third consistent volume isolation pick and roll threat And that's usually where you want to set the tone for like what your backcourt's going to look like. So that might not necessarily be a significant need when everyone's healthy, but still a need throughout the course of a game. Like you want to have multiple threats. So like, say you're playing plug and play, you have 6'5" Spencer Dinwiddie as another option while Kyrie Irving's on the floor and they're face guarding him and they're really trying to, disrupt him and blitz him or whatever you want to say when he gets the ball. Like you want to have that established threat on the floor where it's like, no, you're going to have to think twice about, really loading up on, the superstar while Luka Doncic is not on the court. So I think that's where the value will be because I know Dante Exum had some fantastic stretches last year, like December when, Kyrie went down and he filled that role, but he still did it mostly like, pick and roll, playing off the ball. And he's not necessarily like the isolation guy. Like he can take like with that in and out dribble and blow by us like a bigger player that's trying to, survive in space. But, you're going to trust probably Spencer Dinwiddie in that isolation scoring opportunity or role a lot more in the half court. So like, that's kind of my general thought if I had to guess what you're looking for. And then Dante, because of his health concerns, you're probably wanting to preserve him because we saw in December that great stretch. He averaged over 14 a game, like during that Kyrie Irving injury absence before he returned to the lineup for that like January game against Utah. Like his minutes got revved up so much that I think it just, he ended up having that bursitis problem and then he just was sidelined. I think that really disrupted the rhythm that he had. And you never really saw as impactful from him. There were some flashes, but into the playoffs, he just wasn't that same impact player as he had shown in previous points. So I think he's someone that you would like to have on your roster as like that on ball, pick you up full court, knock down an open shot and be an auxiliary, whatever you want to call it, playmaker, he's another option, tack the closeout, find the open guy. Basically what he does for Australian national team, stuff like that. Like that's all great intangibles to have, but that's not someone you necessarily physically from that injury standpoint want to rely on day in and day out. I think he is someone, as you said, you can sprinkle in, especially because he can play the multiple positions, the 3 spot. You could theoretically, even because we also have to count Quentin Grimes. If you're thinking of theoretical options, you can play a Spencer Dinwiddie and a Dante Exum next to a Kyrie Irving because they're all big enough for that. But you also, as you said, you have to account for Quentin Grimes' minutes as well. But also he's coming off a season where he had some health stuff. He says he's healthy now, but always with NBA players, they're not going to tell you, hey, I'm still dealing with this or whatever. So we'll have to wait and see how all these players hold up over the course of his season and everything. But I think his skill set, Quentin Grimes, definitely a great player, to have in that complementary role. He can really guard on the ball. He's got a very quick release as well. So I think if you're trying to really have that floor spacer who can, come off of a pin down or just, get into a shot on a handoff, he gives you more options than your typical catch and shoot guy. Like Dante Exum, for example, as we all know, he's someone that, was a little more aggressive in his, the past parts of his career, taking the open shot, but he still was slow and at times to, with the trigger, if you will, to take that shot and at times turn them down still, still kind of working through that. So you're not going to have that with a Quentin Grimes. So that's probably where you're thinking, if we have Dinwiddie on the floor to make these plays, we need a Quentin Grimes because we have Kyrie probably running that bench group. And you just need that quick release, really make the defense pay for, rotating the low defender or whatever, situation you're having Quentin Grimes in. Because you're also going to have, a roll threat as well. So you want to have that floor spaced and really open things up to get the most out of everybody's skill set that's on the court.
With what you're saying, right? Oh, go ahead, Ramsey.
No, go ahead. I was going to kind of piggyback on and ask him. Well, I kind of forgot what I was going to say now. So let's just say with Spencer being part of the rotation, being that third ball handler, right? Do you see us now kind of going back to how we were when we went to the West Conference Finals a couple of years ago, where we're going to continue to have 2 ball handlers on the floor at all times?
That's part of my.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the preferred identity. If it's just a tough reality to always have, with the way the roster constructions work, because sometimes players, leave or you just don't get the development or whatever. It's it's hard. It's a great luxury to have. It's like the rim protector thing. Some teams don't have the rim protection options to have someone on the floor at all times. But now that's why you take on a trade for someone like a Daniel Gafford, so you have that luxury. So now we're talking about a team that has like multiple luxuries for, a very successful team, especially for regular season success. Like, because I think a lot of people naturally are focused on like, what happened against the Celtics in the finals, but that regular season matters a ton. Like, you need to have consistency and minimize the downs, and have winning streaks and crush losing teams. Like you really can't have let down losses. So I think getting into a new season, that's definitely like a healthy focus to have, and I think they have the depth to where you're really going to like what you have, punishing those types of teams. And also you have enough depth as well with the ball handling options, the rim protection, rim rolling options, that you can really handle like top teams effectively as well too. If they have an injury, you have a leg up as well. So like, depending on who we're talking about. So definitely a lot to like about that regular season roster. And I think the playoff roster as well, like, not to get too much into that for all the things we had already discussed, you have to have more shooting on the court, make it easier for Luka and Kyrie to attack the paint, all that stuff. And I think they were able to check those boxes. It's just a matter of, by the time we get to the playoffs, like what are we thinking in terms of like, who's playing well and who's the best fit, who's willing to come off the bench and all that stuff. And definitely think the talent is there though.
With that being said, as far as having two ball handlers on the court at all times, basically, does that mean you don't see Klay playing much two at all this year?
I think he'll probably be on the wing. I think he'll probably fill what they were hoping, like that Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr. Role, but they just didn't have the size. Like, he's he's taller, has a longer wingspan. Like, he kind of checks those boxes that they were hoping those guys would fill in previous versions of this roster. So I think he'll probably spend a lot of time at the three. If I had to guess, they have a lot of options, as we've discussed, at the two. Lots of guys. Yeah. So I think you want to maximize like the wing options you have, especially after Derek Jones's departure. Definitely next to a PJ Washington gives you some nice options overall. Because one thing that I really like to think about with this team, like that cross matching stuff that we were discussing earlier, you're not going to be in a position to where it's easy to determine the weak shooter. Like PJ Washington, I like to think is a better shooter than a Derek Jones. He's also, I think, a little bit better as an off the dribble guy. Like, he can get into the floater, playing off 2 feet, attacking the closeout. Yeah. You can run more things for him. So I think the goal ultimately is to basically have an identity that other teams don't feel good about using that strategy, and they have to play pick and roll defense, because you're just going to carve up whoever you're facing against neutral pick and roll defense if you have Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. So that makes it a lot more uncomfortable to get away with those like cross-matching approaches to try to hide the center. And that's fantastic for regular season success. You want to put a guy like against the Pelicans, for example. I like to think of like the run-of-the-mill like game. Like last year, obviously different roster, but they had Valanciunas. They cross-matched him and hit him as much as possible while Herb Jones was guarding Derek Lively. You want to make it to where you can't make that an acceptable situation, because you want to make it too like awkward and ineffective for the center to have to get out on a PJ Washington and have him ideally, blow by that slower defender or knock down the open shot, and then think twice about, hey, can we actually like get away with this? So that's why I think the next key thing will be PJ Washington's consistency from three, also his evolution, continuing to attack closeouts in that complementary role, and then also what creativity of the half court offense too. Like I know I was listening to the podcast. I honestly forgot the name of it. Whatever Jalen Brunson has with Josh Hart that had Mark Cuban on, and he had mentioned that hopefully Klay. Yeah, for sure. Hopefully Klay Thompson doesn't have to run around all these screens as much. I'm paraphrasing, of course. It's not like exactly what he said. But basically they're not going to potentially, it sounds like, completely rework their offensive scheme. You don't have to with like a Luka and a Kyrie, but I think you could definitely, add some layers. Obviously with a shooter like Klay Thompson, you would hopefully add layers. You got to leverage that skill set. But I think, overall, PJ Washington as well, how they utilize him. When you have a shooter with that type of reputation on the floor too, it gets really interesting. Like, we saw against Oklahoma City, PJ Washington kind of randomly was a post-up guy to like a start of a game against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah,
So now
yes,
that's another element. Where are you going to hide the weakest player or weakest defender for the opposing team? Are you going to put him on a PJ Washington? Are you going to put him on Klay Thompson? But, it gets really challenging because Klay Thompson will probably be used in some of the similar actions that other player like Tim Hardaway Jr. was utilized in. Like he'll probably be one of the screeners in a double drag. He could be a back screener and stack pick and roll. Do you really want like say a Ja Morant on him in that situation being brought into action? So then where does he go? Do you want him guarding Kyrie? Do you want him guarding Luka Doncic? Like is PJ Washington's got a lot of like he's got a strong frame. He can post that type of player up. Like it gets into a thing where you have more of an identity that really puts pressure and makes the opposition have to really think about their game planning. And I think that's where you want to be when you're leveraging the great talent that you have, like on this roster that they've managed to do.
Let me ask you a question, Grant. Speaking of the talent and the depth that we have on this team, with this talent and this depth, do you think that that's going to help? I mean, I know it's going to help Luka and Kyrie, but you think that's going to help them as far as like cutting their minutes down? Because now you have more ball handlers, so you got more talent, you got more guys. I think what they're trying to do now, they're trying to make a lot of these guys tertiary ball handlers. Like you're not going to go out there and get you 5 or 6 assists or whatever, but just get you 1 or 2 assists here, make a nice little play here and there, which like you said, opens the offense up. Do you think all of that will kind of help with cutting down their minutes, maybe to, I ain't saying like to 25 or nothing, but maybe 30. Like 31, 32 minutes a game, kind of keep them fresh going into the postseason?
I think it could definitely like help with dialing down the minutes to an extent. Like Luka, I think Luka's going to want to play as much as possible because he always does, whether it's a game or like within the game. So I think you're going to always have a challenge dialing him down too much in terms of minutes. But I think it does allow for additionally, like not just playing time, but I think it gives you the chance to maybe get a guy off the ball a little bit and get not have to break down the defense as the creator, the initiator of the offense as much, like especially a Luka. And I think that's fascinating to think about because I know they've really emphasized playing fast and not wanting to slow it down. But if you are in a half-court game, that gives you the option of moving around Luka more. Like I really like to analyze that stuff as well too, where you're putting him on the elbow in a horn set a little bit more. Maybe you're cross screening for him, letting him post up. And really put pressure on the defense, get the double, and he's just passing out of that, and you're playing with an advantage. Like it just gives you more options when you have more ball handling, and he's not gonna have to work that hard in those situations. You're just leveraging the presence that he has on different spots of the floor, and it makes the defense have to think more. Like you're not going to be able to just stay in your base defense and guard at the top of the offense over and over again. Like if he's at different spots, you have to think, all right, so can we survive with this smaller defender on him? Can we, how can we avoid getting a smaller defender switched onto him? And then, all the little things that get added into that or the layers that come from that just, you're not having Luka break down someone out in space 1,000 times a game, but you're able to still leverage his talent. And if he has the advantage and he can score, go score. If you get the double, open an opportunity for a teammate. And I think there's just more talent overall to still play out of that and make the most of it because there's more threats now to where you can attack the closeout, get the drop-off pass to the big that's on the floor, or if you're playing 5 out, say with the guy we haven't even brought up yet, Maxi Kleber. Like if you're playing small ball with him spacing out, you have more threats that you use that space more effectively instead of like kind of, the ball's going to have to find its way back to the guy who just created the double team for us. Like that's probably some of those better advantages that you have depending on the style that you're playing in. Or are you more interested in maybe having Derek Lively space out a little bit more as we saw in the finals with his first made 3? Are you comfortable with that yet? Like can he maybe provide a little bit of that space without sacrificing the rim protection? You don't want to take him too much away from the paint, obviously, because he's such an efficient finisher. Like he's off the charts good in those regards. But, definitely just some different options to make the defense think, punish them for the way they're approaching things. And definitely great problems to have. A lot of options, never a bad thing.
And a way to force Luka to sit down is blowouts. Just with all the skill we got, just blow teams up. You feel me? I saw it happen with Steph Curry when he won unanimous MVP. He was sitting down in the fourth quarter all the time. But my question is simple. I guess it'd be my last question. Do you think the Mavericks are going into this season thinking they have a championship level team? Or are we going into the season saying we're waiting for the trade deadline or something like that? Because I feel like personally, they're finally at a level like usually every other year we're sitting here saying, well, we'll see what happens in the season. We got to get rid of this one guy and get this and this. But do you think the Mavericks actually think they have a championship level team or they can win it all with the team they're going into the season with right now?
Yeah, I definitely think coming off the finals, I think with them not staying complacent and not losing someone and having a glaring roster hole or two, coming off a deep run, like definitely way different situation than that 2022 Western Conference Finals where Jalen Brunson walks and he's losing for nothing. Like, I think they definitely added to what they had, and I think they, I'm assuming they're probably viewing this as that, championship contending quality team, but they're always opportunistic. That's what we've learned, with this front office. If there's a way to get better, yeah, exactly. If there's a way to get better, he's going to find chances to strike while the iron's hot at the trade deadline. And I know they've traded a good amount, or at least pick swapped. Moved a good amount of their future assets. So it's not like they're like sitting on this treasure trove like they're Oklahoma City or anything, but even marginal upgrades, if like say Quentin Grimes isn't working out or, someone like that, or there's just room to improve, I'm sure they're not going to be complacent about it and let a situation, run the whole season and not make that upgrade. I think they're more compelled to be aggressive coming off the finals, especially because you're fully confident in the version of this team. Like, not saying they weren't confident by any means, but it's a way different reality to say pour all you have now coming off of finals than with the the envelope opens and the Mavericks are going to be picking 10 or whatever. Like definitely different situations where you can feel perfectly emboldened to be aggressive when opportunities are there.
Speaking of rosters, man, I got to ask you this because we talked about this on the last show. We saw this on Bleacher Report. He kind of threw this idea out. Who would you start at center this year?
I would say Derek Lively. I think in the playoffs, he was a more positive. Like if you look at the not always relying on the numbers, but I think it was pretty telling, the on-court, off-court numbers. He was a very significant positive. I think Daniel Gafford struggled at times. I just think ideally you want your – like the players with the most dynamic, like the most pop to their game, with those attributes, you want them to start, set the tone. And I think Derek Lively is going to be, a very special player in his career. And I think what you're going to want to do is really pour into his development. And he's got the intangibles that are just phenomenal. Like he's like what, 7'2", 7'1", has a crazy Gobert-esque, not quite Gobert-esque wingspan, but like 7'9". I know Gobert's got like an 8-foot wingspan, so it's not necessarily, obviously it's a difference there, but not many players have a 7'9" wingspan and can jump out of the gym. And I think he's someone that, ever since Summer League last year, just being, interacting with him and like picking his brain on the game, in the locker room or whatever, for articles and stuff. Like he's super smart. Like I was able to get like full synopsises from him or whatever the word is, from him on like X's and O's. And I'm like, this man has been here for a week, 2 weeks. And he's already given me like a full-fledged, like variable, like crazy breakdown. And I'm like, yeah, I got to talk to this guy more. This guy's awesome. And he was always soaking up information and applying it, like, Tyson Chandler working with him, Sean Sweeney working with him, all these like very, high level minds are pouring into him, and he, fully maximizes those opportunities. Like even at Duke, Sean Sweeney is out there with him while they were visiting the Duke campus. And, he's someone that spent a lot of time with the bigs, and, he's had a lot of success working with bigs in the NBA as well too. So I think, there's a great team around him to maximize his development. And basically, long story short, I think that's what you want to put at the starting center role and really let him grow into that. And especially with all the talent there too, like that's going to be an incredibly tough offense to handle with adding Klay Thompson in there. The pick and roll is much harder to guard now, and you just want to completely punish the defense as much as possible with your most dynamic options. And I think Daniel Gafford's very effective, obviously, like against bad teams, especially. Like he had those crazy runs of made field goals against like some of those like rebuilding teams with, beneficiary of Luka's passing. But, I think a full off season to really work on his game even more, learn the offense, everything, learn the defense, all that good stuff. Already familiar with the NBA level. I think I would fully trust Daniel Gafford to be a fantastic starter in the NBA, like in his second season, and never even contemplate ever again having to talk about a position battle. That's how much I trust his skill set.
Do you think he'll be effective off the bench? Because I know he kind of struggled a little bit with us when he first came here, coming off the bench when he started lobby for a little bit. Do you think Gafford will be effective coming off the bench this year if he decide to go that route?
I think he will because you have more playmaking options. I think he's someone that gets maximized when you have off the dribble talent. Like even if he's just hanging in the dunker spot, he's someone that can catch and finish very effectively. But that's hard to do and hard to get opportunities if Kyrie Irving is being doubled and you have players that aren't necessarily threats. Like if Tim Hardaway is playing 9-1-1, Kyrie Irving's in trouble. I got to come to the ball and he's putting the shot up. That's not unless it's an offensive rebound for Daniel Gafford. That's not necessarily the same as like Spencer Dinwiddie's poised, spacing out from like the 4-point line, gets the ball, attacks middle of the floor, draws help, and drops it off. Or like I know he's not necessarily the most effective lob pass guy. He's had some inconsistency with that with some of his big partnerships. I think that could take some time to develop a little bit of that chemistry. But I mean, there's some great options to get that chemistry with the catch radius, whether it's Lively or Gafford. So I think having that presence is definitely going to help multiple off the dribble threats, even Dante Exum as well. Like if he's on the court, whether it's him, Spencer Dinwiddie, there's options that are, looking to make the right play that I think will get the most out of a play finishing big, whether it is Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively in that particular situation.
I have another question, bro. Do you think this is the year the Mavs finally, shoot out the gate and stay? Like a winning, I don't want to say a winning basketball team. We're usually winning, but we usually get to a part of the season within the last 3 years where we're around 500, and we're just playing with that until the second half of the year when we just kind of take off a little bit. You think this is the year finally where we maybe can start off the season hot and Luka might be able to get an MVP finally based off of that?
Yeah, I think I fully expect that. I can be wrong for sure. There's always that possibility, but like they started off very well. I remember last year, like super effective. Like they had a great record, but then started to tone down. I think their shooting wasn't as effective. They relied on that with that version of the roster. It's just crazy to think how long an NBA season is because they were relying on threes quite a bit. They weren't a very good defensive team at all. They were like probably not at the very bottom, but bottom 10, like ish, like 22, something like that. Yeah, so that's not an identity that necessarily has that high floor where you're gonna just crush teams and not have a bad shooting night, really throw you off and make you have unfortunate that was just not our night situation. Like I think having the ability to more so dominate the paint, get into the paint, all of that, and also be an effective defensive team is going to help them be a very tough the regular season team plus their offense with two superstars in the backcourt, assuming no injuries. But I think they're even better suited to handle injuries, obviously because of the depth, but also you can rely on Klay Thompson more. You can run more things for him and rely on an offensive punch. But I'm also curious to see, we don't always know everything coming into the season. A lot of things can change. We can be positively surprised. For all we know, Derek Lively's added more to his skill set that he's playing in certain situations and able to, be a little bit more effective, blowing by someone on a rip through, keeping it on a dribble handoff. Because, that's another thing, that they have. Klay Thompson's very, used to playing out of dribble handoffs, and Draymond Green, Trace Jackson Davis, they leverage that presence to not give the handoff up when the focus is Klay Thompson. They keep it, attack downhill, throw down or finish, and all those little variables where he can really flourish off of the presence of other players that are around him. So, yeah.
Do you see
Lobby
doing that?
Bro,
you see Lobby doing it?
He tries.
I was thinking about the other day.
The one, usually he does he tries a Euro step sometimes. He hurt himself at one time doing it. But if he gets a consistent move where he can get past that one guy,
man, I could definitely see him adding that to his game, bro. I was thinking about the other day. I was watching somebody had posted a highlight of Draymond doing the fake pass and going in there with the dunk. I'm like, yo,
I can see that all day.
Yeah, all day. Yep.
And when you're a player like Derek Lively with the tangibles that he has, that just gets fully maximized and just leveraged when you have all that talent around him. And I think they have like some really overwhelming options for a defense. And as someone commented, I feel like we touched on it prior, but their injuries really piled up. With Kyrie. So I think not only was it performance-based, but injury-based. Like, I think they still held their own a little bit. Like, I think, with Dante Exum, I think they had like a 5-4 record or something like that in like starts that he had during that time. So I think they were able to like kind of duct tape it together, but the long-term effect really weighed them down. I feel like where, his minutes got ran up, as we said, but also Luka had to do even more. And I think everyone kind of had that cause and effect, the downside of that as the season went on, because Kyrie, eventually came back, but then he had that additional injury, but Dante Exum was still injured as well. So like they really had to. It's easy to see why things started to go towards like a 23-20 record or whatever they had like halfway through the year, right before the like trade deadline and All-Star break. So definitely think they're better insulated to handle those situations, and that just. Definitely, as you mentioned, that would help with an MVP outlook for someone like Luka, keep players a little more fresh, and then, be able to hopefully have more of their, what makes them great show in the playoffs. Because I think Luka, he was still a great player, obviously, but like, I mean, I feel like I always ask him about his 3-point shooting, and he really boils it down to his legs. Like he just said, I ideally would like a little more of a science like behind it, or a little more sophisticated like insight into it. But maybe it's really just that simple. He just says, I'm just fresh, my legs or whatever, and he was shooting career high from 3, but playoffs he struggled with the step back like percentage wise and everything. So I think if that's really what it boils down to, you really want to keep that man's legs fresh for the playoffs. And I think they're better equipped to do that unless injuries just unfortunately pile up in a crazy way. But definitely think
he's gonna definitely be fresh, Grant, because he did, but he didn't really play in the Olympics this summer. So this is going to be his first.
He didn't do
the qualified. Yeah, so this is going to be his first year where he's actually going to have a true off season, something he hadn't had in like 7-8 years or whatever. So that's why I think a lot of what you're saying with his legs and all that stuff, I think he's going to be in. I think he's going to come into the season a whole lot more fresh.
That is very true, because I think last year, at the World Cup, like he adding that into all the games that he played, that was over 100 games. And I want to add, I cover all of those, so it's not just the people on the court that had to, obviously much harder. But I learned 14-hour time differences and still trying to do video breakdowns and all that stuff. It was crazy. But if I felt like if I was tired at the end, the man taking a beating on the court over and over and over again, trying to score 33 points a game, get triple doubles, definitely adds up for a long 112 whatever games he played over that period. But you're right, the qualifier only played a handful of games, didn't have to do a lengthy training camp. He joined them like pretty close to that time. That was something that I covered as well. Like, just being there, it was like a very laid back situation where, he's not having to really, run himself to the ground like you would expect, like an NBA training camp. Like they're just, they're getting him in off the finals. So it wasn't like an extensive process. And then in the games out there in, Athens, he was able to, he played well, but I think you could see like, this is definitely a guy that is coming off that, as we said, 100+ games played and didn't quite make the Olympics with Greece advancing through that bracket. And that's a different discussion for a different day. I think the national team there is in a transitional period. So definitely curious to see what they do with their future. I know they use that naturalized spot for, Josh Nebo. He's 6'7". And when you're playing against some really tough teams with size, that's definitely start to appreciate a little bit more of like, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford playing alongside a guy like Luka. So definitely see the value of the size there and everything at the 5 spot. So I think he's going to have the help he needs with this team, to, as we said, stay fresher throughout the course of his season and have the pieces to really get the most out of his skill set. Because, I mean, pick and roll, he's got great options. He has shooting threats on the perimeter. And there's enough defensive help around him to where, they can they can really lock in and, execute well. Like, it's not like there's one perimeter defender on the team or anything like that, and just like players that rely on threes dropping for their only source of impact. So definitely think the conditions are set for a very special season for him individually and the team overall, for sure.
I agree, man. You want to get to some of these questions? Can you just a little bit, few of them? Let me get to some of the super chats here first.
You want to run through the normal stuff though, the partner and all that.
Oh yeah, man. Then we get to the glow yard. Give us a second, y'all. I gotta go back and find my stuff here, man. All right, man. Let's show some love here, man, to Playback. Yes, sir, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all guys can also follow us over at Playback. You can download the app wherever you get your apps from. It's absolutely free. We will stream all the Dallas Maverick games there, whether it be preseason, regular season, playoffs, or finals. We stream all the Dallas Maverick games there. You can join the Glow Yard over there also with us and watch the games with us. It'd be like a watch along, if you will. Also, too, we have other programs over there. Like we have wrestling programs. We also have classic basketball games on there too, guys. So you guys can follow us over there on Playback under Glow Sun Production. Yes, all right, King. All right, now let's get to the Glow Yard. All right, man. Let's get to a few of these questions that y'all have here, man, from the members. Let's get these super chats right here. Shout out to Ali, man, with the $13.99 Canada dollars, man. We definitely appreciate it. He had no comment, but he just wanted to show support. We definitely appreciate you. Ali. Coy with the $4.99 dono. He's a Glow Yard member, of course. Also the MVP of the channel. Says, much love, guys. Welcome, Grant. He said, I thought Luka was fat. Didn't look fat to me. Rejuvenated Luka. Scary for the league. Yeah, man. What do you think about that, Grant? That rumor going around that Luka was fat. And they kind of find out they show different videos and pictures of him. It's like he's nowhere close to fat.
I honestly think it was a very talented Twitter troll that like changed the proportions. To be honest, I think that might have been what it was. I was not there for like the Goran Dragic situation because I did Olympic stuff. I'm like, I'm not spending 2 whole months on this continent. Man. I'm going home. But he understandable. He looked perfectly fine. Obviously, way different time of the summer, but right off the finals, still like a couple weeks later, perfectly fine. I think sometimes this stuff gets like a little exaggerated when we talk preseason because, like, just from experience, other NBA players like you talk to and stuff throughout the year or see, especially locker room wise, like. It's more about the in-season to me, not particularly about Luka, but just in general. Like, there's like you got to think about the human element here. If you are going on the road 4 games and you are able to walk into whatever restaurant you want, and they're bringing you we have like I don't even care what player we're talking about, like a starter in the NBA. Like Tobias Harris, like, or something, whatever. We're bringing you all this stuff or whatever. Like, we're so happy to have you in here. If you do that, like, for 12 out of your 30 days in a month, that can have some volatility during the NBA season. So I think that's where some NBA players may have like the volatility, inconsistencies, or whatever you want to say for that. I know some players have to be more conscious about it than others because, everyone's like, that's not just basketball player thing. Everyone's different. So, definitely the 82 game marathon is where you really got to think about that. But I thought last year he did, like, they were really committed to playing fast. I thought he, was, really as well, whether it was throw aheads or, he also was more aggressive attacking. I felt like in transition. And I think that there's no reason for me, really, I would have any concern. I mean, it's also not my team. So, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I don't own it or anything. I'm not coaching it. But I don't think necessarily if I was in that position, I would be concerned by it. I think he's probably fine. And, I mean, we see in right now he's in China. I know that tour is going to different cities, so I don't know the exact city right now, but I think he looked perfectly fine. The Jordan tour that he's on with Jason Tatum,
Yeah.
Zion, Paulo
Hello.
Banchero or Caro.
Hello.
Yeah, I think. Even Zion as well. Like he's someone that has some struggles at times. He looks fantastic right now as well. I think now is the time to look, like great entering the training camp, but you want to make sure that's still the case whenever you get to January 19th or something, for sure.
Facts.
I agree. Then we got this one up from Hold My Latte with the $5 Canada dollars. Just welcome Grant. Love your I can't speak. Welcome Grant. Love your coverage. Also, shout out to We Talk Mavs, amazing show. Great guest and host. Hope y'all families are well. Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. You
And
too, Hold My Latte.
happy late birthday, Latte. It was
Oh yeah, happy birthday, man. Happy birthday. Get you the White Power jersey, man.
Richard. Well, everybody's a Glow Yard member. He says, on a serious note, can we get Grant as the Mavs beat writer? He is far better than Tim and way more trusted. Shouts to Tim McMahon. Nancy says, good morning, guys. Good morning, Nancy. Welcome, Grant. Love your content.
I appreciate that, Nancy.
Richard says, to you, Grant, do they really think layup line Maxey can still play defense, shoot well, anything really?
Well, I think what we saw in the regular season, they definitely do think that. I don't know what people are thinking on August 30th, but I think there was plenty of times last year where they did favor going small because of the general concept of switching. I think the more, I guess you could say, layered part of this that I would think is like, when do you start just simply trusting Derek Lively to switch? Because I know they wanted to keep it simple for him entering, for any rookie, entering the first season of their career. You don't want to make it too complicated as you're going through the whole year. But I know, even from day one when he got to the team, they're working on all these concepts like veer switching. It's a very complicated judgment call if you're getting used to NBA talents, how quick a guard can change pace. How can I account for that, not let the big get behind me all simultaneously? How can I quickly communicate with the guard to now make that switch, things of that nature? Those are all concepts. It's kind of like any layer to an offensive skill set too. Like a turnaround jump shot for a player might be in the works for 2 to 3 years before you actually start to see it. So I think that's partly where, the long-term development process comes into play, where maybe we see more of him executing in those concepts, and also with switching in general. I remember I'm actually working on this article, right now about the defense overall. One of the details that I'm going to be talking about, is actually Derek Lively's ability to switch. Because I think even early in the year, I asked a lot of the veterans like Grant Williams, Dwight Powell. I think it was before. I remember being in Memphis when I asked most of these questions, and they were just as simple as he's definitely someone that's got the potential, but even basic stuff when you're entering the league as a 7-footer, you got to worry about defensive stances, having that be like you're not necessarily asked to do that a ton in early parts of your career. Even that sounds super basic for, just basketball fundamentals, of defensive stance, but we're talking a defensive stance to guard Ja Morant. We're, a electrifying, super dynamic player. You got to have that really, really, really optimized. It's not just, anybody you're guarding. You're guarding the best in the world. So I think having that focus and dedication on the development throughout a full year, he was able to do it more later in the year last year during the stretch run of the season. They had to use it more in the actual playoffs itself. I thought he did well, whether it was against an Anthony Edwards or, players like that. I thought he had plenty of very high quality to great possessions doing that. So do you take that go away from the finals run, enter the season, and now be we don't really need to have a different closing lineup or just change up approach with a small ball with a space out option that can switch, because hell, we can just have Derek Lively switch. No point in taking him off the court and having him, watch the closing couple minutes when he can also show you a little bit, hey, I can space out to the corner as well and knock down an open shot if you need me. So I think those are definitely those intangibles that I would watch with Derek as his second season starts to play out as well too. Because if they can really trust all of those, and that's not me to say, I would trust that. I would too. like when we're on the outside looking in, we might look a little unhinged in comparison to like the slow process where all these minds are like, making these like, oh, not yet, not quite yet sort of determinations. Like wait, you're ready to trust him now? Like that's how we might come off, but for all I know. But I would personally trust those skills or attributes in his skill set. Right now, I think he's shown potential in those areas, especially like with how much focus goes into it for a whole year. He had so much shooting reps. I know people give me crap some people do, whenever I post like the big shooting, like, oh, Dwight Powell will never shoot a three or whatever. Like Derek's never going to shoot a three. But like, I remember a couple of days before when I was posting Derek Lively shooting a three in the finals, he made one a couple of days later. Like you never know when this could be a factor. So I think if you could trust all of those skills, that's when you're just like, let's have Derek Lively close. This is not even a topic of a conversation or a debate. Like, just have him close.
I trust the
y'all.
Go ahead, bro.
I'm about to say, y'all heard what Grant said, y'all, because I know a lot of people see him, those videos of him shooting those threes in practice and all that. I was expecting he'll come in here and shoot 40% next year. Like, it's a process. He's gonna get there, y'all. He's gonna get there. You see the work ethic. He's gonna get there.
I trust what I see in the playoffs, though. And he was able to switch in the playoffs. He rose to the occasion. He made that three like we talked about, which helped us win that game, which was a major momentum. I trust Derek Lively. Like you said, I think Derek Lively is going to be special. I think his floor to me right now is a top 10 center in the NBA. Like, that's his floor being that. So we'll see. But
aggregate us. Derek Lively will be a top 10 center. Just
put it out there.
Link to the video. Quote us. Whatever.
I truthfully, I really think he has the potential to be a top 5 center in the NBA. Like, I really think Derek Lively. I didn't know much about him before last year, and a lot of folks in the Glow Yard was telling us about him. And they were saying he averaged 5, 5, and 1 off the bench, and I'm like, what? Off the bench, 5, 5, and 1? I'm like, that's
and like I forgot how many minutes. It was like the minutes was like okay, so he doing that, and like so
we started looking at him and all, and then the impact of him having to start off from the season, and even the preseason games against Rudy Gobert, and kind of getting embarrassed a little bit in that situation to then take that into the first game against Wemby, and then every game I felt like against Wemby and Chet was just like he stepped to the occasion every time and was like held them to check and was arguably the best center on the floor every time they played. So if that happens, I pay attention to patterns. I seen him do that. I seen the playoffs. I don't see why Derek Lively can't be a top 5 center in the NBA.
I felt like he always did really well, like in follow-up matchups. Like, I've seen this guy now a couple times. All right, I know what you got coming for me during this game. Like, I think he's a very great, very intelligent guy. Great, exactly as you said, playoffs. You have those exposures, where you're playing the same team, same player numerous times.
Zubac at the beginning, I felt like was cooking him.
No, I was going to say, look at Rudy. You use Rudy Gobert. Look
I was saying early in the season to switch, but I was just giving the example of one series. Zubac at the beginning was cooking.
Oh, yeah.
And then by the end, it felt like Lively and Gafford had started understanding how to play against him and what things to do to get him uncomfortable. Right. So Lively's a beast, man. Like, I have nothing but great words to say about Derek Lively. That dude's elite. And to go through all the stuff he's been through and to still play and help us get to the finals, like, that dude's no problems here.
Yeah, very special character. I feel like, very mature for his age, very, very intelligent. Like, it's very impressive, just talking to him as like, I forget that he's even 19 years old or 20 years old. 20. Like, now 20 years old. Like, when he first was drafted, I was just like this. Yeah. Like that's why I like covering like the team and everything, like basketball. Cause you're able to be like, you know what? Like it goes both ways. Sometimes you're like, I don't know about that guy now. Like, but sometimes you're like, you know what? Like this guy's got all the intangibles, and seeing the work like on a daily basis and things like that. Like, he's definitely someone that's, always looking to maximize, get his development and everything of that nature. And I think a great example of this, I remember talking to him, like, cause I was working on like, I haven't done this story yet, because it's hard when the season just abruptly ends, and you're like, okay, now I'm not around these guys anymore. But I really am going to focus on his development soon, whenever we kind of pick back up. And I had already talked to him about like the work that he's done, like particularly with Sean Sweeney, the guy that, he's working with pregame a lot in the training facility and everything. And he had mentioned that like at the start of the year, I felt like I couldn't make a hook with my left hand. I couldn't, finish with it. He said, I couldn't even make a hook with my right hand. He said, I just feel like I've been able to, really benefit from the work with, a guy like Sean Sweeney working with me and like really refine my skill set. And I mean, that's true. Like if you look at I remember doing a breakdown of him whenever he was an option at Duke, like coming into the NBA, he really struggled finishing outside of pretty much anything that wasn't a dunk. Like he's improved so much in that regard. Like he had a couple opportunities against switches where he just turned his shoulder, put the hook up, and succeeded. Like he's insurmountably improved as a basketball player, and that's the type of player you want to be taking in the lottery. That makes it all worth it. Like you have questions. Like I admittedly was like, I mean, they have to actually it's great to be in the lottery, but you got to actually hit on this pick. Like there's a lot of busts. There's a healthy skepticism and optimism, I guess you could say. But when you get someone like Derek Lively, it's always Captain Hindsight stuff. That's how the draft works. Like that was a home run.
I never want to do that again, Grant. I never want to do that tank again.
I don't want to go to Chicago for the lottery. I'll tell you, the playoffs was a lot more entertaining for sure.
Hey, y'all need to go watch that video with Lively, and it was who was it? It was Theo Pinson with the EBYL. Yeah, go watch that video, man. And Lively does a lot of speaking about his game and how he learned what he learned in the league and stuff, man. It's a pretty good video.
I'm gonna get back to the comments, but the only reason that we didn't win the Mavericks didn't win the championship last year is because Derek Lively couldn't drink the champagne. So you feel me? From this point on, he'll be able to drink the champagne. So we'll see. But TGK, he's a Glow Yard member, obviously, but he's also the host of the official Mavs pregame show. He says Grant and We Talk Mavs equals elite Mavs coverage, EMC. All I thought about was Albert Einstein right there.
Appreciate it, TGK.
Always TGK. Richard says, I thought we got younger. Grant making it sounds like we were going to be playing over 30, overrated, overpaid, injury riddled has-beens. So here's my thing with Richard before you go, Grant, because you got to understand who Richard is. He doesn't like players over 30. He wants most players when they're over 30, he's like, you can't give them more than a 1-year contract. That's how Richard feels. But he's saying, I guess what you're saying about Jaden Hardy maybe not really fitting the team and all now that you're saying just go old, but I'll let you finish it from there.
Well, I think in a way that's where training camp really comes into play. Like if he's ready to take that leap, someone entering his third season, I don't necessarily think he'll be like held down if he shows those things. I think when you're a team with such high expectations, you're just trying to get as much talent as you can to give yourself the option, because you don't have certainties. Like if he doesn't show that capability, or like as we said with the injuries as well too, you never know. Like let's say that starts to pile up. Well, that Spencer Dinwiddie's not going to be available in like December or January or potentially whatever it may be, most likely. So, you kind of want to have as much internal talent as you can to give you the option. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be like there's no possible way for Jaden Hardy to prove himself and then earn an opportunity. So I think it's just more so maximizing healthy competition, because they also have those veterans on very, very cheap contracts. Like I think if I remember correctly, both are minimum contracts for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dante Exum. So that gives you the options to also say, okay, this young guy is crushing it. Like we have to make room for him. Like you could get off those contracts, I think, pretty easily if you have to, and find a taker to find an established veteran. So I don't necessarily think completely buried with no hope, but definitely a bring your best effort in training camp and take this spot is going to be a requirement.
Let me continue his thought. He says also, Grant, the one big glaring roster hole is layup line Maxey.
Well, I think they have more options. I mean, if you are down on Maxey Kleber, I think you can go with many lineup combinations where you're not necessarily having to run him as a closer, like as we already discussed. I think there's ways where you can, if you want size, a lot of size on the court, I think he could be a helpful option at the 4, where you're having him be that low defender, and he gives you interchangeable pick and roll coverage options where he can be the big. I think that's probably where he's best suited, especially if you are not going to have as great a perimeter containment on drives necessarily. If you don't want to not have that physically imposing presence in the middle of the lane, if you're gonna basically have like a Luka, Kyrie, Klay Thompson closing group or something like that. So I think if you are like, my personal opinion is if his best role is probably suited at that 4 spot, because we did see before he started to have issues in the playoffs. That actually was one of their more like positive combos against the Clippers, because you had that size, like 6'10", 245 or whatever he is a different option when early in the year you were playing like really small, like 6'6" Grant Williams and things like that. So I think it's just another one of those things.
I don't remember none of that, Grant. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember that.
Grant, do you worry about? So my thing with Maxey is 2 things I really worry about with him, and I guess age is included with the injuries that have seemed to happen now a lot, and 2, the lack of shooting the ball. Like last year, I think they said he made 0.7 threes a game, and I think that's like 30-something threes with all the games that he played. So 30 threes in a season for a stretch 5, doesn't that kind of cancel out the idea of a stretch 5?
Yeah, I think to an extent. I think you definitely aren't getting like what you're ideally hoping for in that stretch big, because I think also he has some reluctance to shoot the ball, as you said. Like the attempts, the makes aren't that like as great as what you would want. The accuracy isn't as great. And also, I think he has some reluctance at times, like, with decision making, like, should I take this shot? I think he, like, when he is deliberate, I think he does show some of those qualities. Like he does, he can get to the rim at times. He even like randomly will show like a mid-range bank shot, like out of nowhere. I'm like, wow, that was interesting. Like you just banked that in from 17 feet. Okay, that happened. Just attacking a closeout or whatever. So I think, but in reality, like, I think you're right. Like, I think if he was playing at that level, which is a lofty level, like where he played for a lot of that 2022 playoff run, where he was just a flamethrower from 3, I think, you're loving the impact you're getting, but it doesn't have to necessarily be at that level. But I think you're right. Like for a lot of what you've received, looking at the impact, it hasn't been to that standard. And I think you're probably better off having multifaceted threats on the perimeter, playing the 4, the 3, all that stuff with a rim protector. But that's where you really want to trust the spacing options with, like a Derek Lively, or just maximize your off the dribble threats on the court to where the spacing doesn't matter as much. Because, like, I don't know how creative they're willing to get with lineup combinations, but we also did see last time Spencer Dinwiddie was in Dallas, they had some interesting options with him being 6'5" to play him next to Brunson and Luka. What if you like kind of have that option out there as well? If you know you're getting blitzed in crunch time, maybe you throw that 3 like triple threat option or whatever you want to say, and make it hell to double team the ball. Like, I mean, you have a lot of options on this roster, so that's not like my preference, my number 1 or whatever. But that also makes it easier to leverage your center. Not spacing out. But I guess those are just the qualities that I think are going to be so important, because they really value the switching and the spacing. Like anytime I asked about it, like as a closing lineup, it was like, kind of like, because sometimes I'm asking questions because I know people are genuinely wanting to know and they may not understand it. Like I have a understanding, like personally, like why. So that's maybe sometimes why at times I'm reluctant, because I'm like, well, I mean, I already know, but I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing it for other people as well, like the fans wanting to know. So sometimes I'd ask, like, kind of what went into the closing, like the philosophy of the closing lineup, like what were you looking for? What were you hoping for? And, like he would often mention the switching, the spacing. And so I think they really value the concept wise, and they're willing to live with the ups and downs, even if it's like a long-term thing where it's like you have that stock that tanks and doesn't come back for a long time. Right. I think they were willing to be like, long-term, this is a style that we want to play and we believe in, or whatever, you want to say. And even if there's a stretch where it's not working, we still believe that this is the ideal set of like intangibles in the style. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if that's still the case, you would hope that there's trust in Derek Lively's ability to do those things in addition to everything he already does, which I mean, me personally, we've talked about it. I feel like he's, you should probably try it. That's what the regular season as well is there for as well too, where you can experiment with those things, let him take more shots, from the corner, get creative with it for sure. Because you never know, that could end up being really important come playoff time against a particular matchup. Like the Celtics, they made it a nightmare to operate in the half court for everybody they played. They took the corner 3 away. they were willing to live with underwhelming, like above the break shots or shooting threats, taking those shots. And you need to, really have that identity that can handle that type of, like, I guess you could say, shock of all those things that we typically rely on, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are really hard. Like, what else can we turn to? So I think that's kind of the next, like, the evolution of what you would ideally want to take away from the finals, apply it with the regular season. And I think they have the skill sets and the potential to, get more well-rounded and have deeper options to be able to turn to if they were to face a team like that with similar capabilities, if not the Celtics again. So that's, overall, just, I know we started off talking about Max and Cleveland, so that was kind of a crazy.
It all goes around kind of the Lively. Like, if Lively somehow, some way can be trusted, which I think he will at some point, as far as switching on defense and to give you some type of
this year.
Yes, that's what I think this year, hopefully. But to be switching on defense and to give you some type of, like, shot, like, so a 3-point shot, which is trusted, where he can make one a game or something like that. If that happens, you can open up plays like Luka playing pick and roll, pick and pop with PJ Washington. Think about that. Like, PJ has the mid-range little floater. That's damn near automatic that he shoots all the time. You can run him off a pick and roll, pick and pop as far as I'm shooting that. It's a whole bunch of different dimensions I think you have, but people play you differently because Derek Lively can now be the guy that stands in the corner and defends the guy that actually comes off that screen as well. So Derek Lively, that's why I say this is now the Derek Lively story. Luka is who I know Luka can be. He's already at the potential of being the best player in the NBA. I already knew that. Now it's like I need to see where Derek Lively evolves into, because if he evolves into what I think he can, we're talking about like something special as long as we can keep, especially in that window with Kyrie and Clay and all them being like just giving you something. If Lively gets to that point with them, sky's the limit.
I agree.
Nancy says, Grant, what did you think of Najee Marshall's defense on SGA in the playoffs last year?
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic. I think if you're really trying to switch and just hound like a player like that, like one of the shot creator isolation guys, like whether it's an SGA or any Anthony Edwards or anyone like that, I think Najee Marshall is someone you can really trust to do that. He does it at a high level, very physical, but he also has great quick hands. I think he can absorb the contact, poke the ball loose, and really piss someone off, get this dude off me type of defense. So I think it's if you're going to compare, I know we're all a lot of people are comparing the loss of Derek Jones and then what you're getting from Najee Marshall. I think you're able to be more physical with Najee Marshall. He's a way bigger frame guy, has the ability to absorb the contact, and I think that's something that they didn't necessarily have. I think you could trust PJ Washington to do that, but I think having multiple of those options, if you are willing and living with switching, that's what you really want to. You want to have those types of options because you're keeping it all in front of you. Kind of like how Grant Williams was with the Celtics. He's not as effective necessarily without that talent around him to help pack the paint, really help him survive on an island if he's having to guard a quicker option way far out. The Celtics like to switch and keep it compact, make it really challenging to even get to the paint, and he just had the frame to absorb the contact. I think Najee Marshall's better than that. I think he can be more competitive out on an island in his own right. So I think ideally what they were hoping, I guess my point is they were hoping to get this type of defender, I think, in Grant Williams, but I think they have a better one in PJ Washington and now Najee Marshall as well. So schematically, I'm very curious. I think as well, Quentin Grimes is someone who's very quick, who gives you that different style that you can put out there. He can chase around screens and, handle some of those shiftier guys as well too. So I think they have different options. Just a matter of what they're willing to do with the combinations, I think, with lineups. But definitely think the evolution of switching in this team with the front court options is going to be very important because they like to do it. And if you can trust it, get great results, they have the defenders at other positions, around Luka and Kyrie to be able to do. And I think that's also part of everything we talk about, kind of, rounds back to another with the defense. I think that's why you want to keep those guys fresh, the superstars, because you want them to be able to give more, throughout the regular season. I know that's
right.
When you have an ultra high usage, tons of minutes, you've been doing it all year, it's a little harder to necessarily get that impact from a guy like a Luka or even a Kyrie. But we saw during the playoffs when they did have gas in the tank, both of them were able to gear up and make an impact. I thought Luka's defense, in the finals, he ran out of the gas in the finals, I felt like. And I think, earlier points, like against the Clippers, they were like, we're going to hunt the hell out of this guy. And they got him for a game. But then he came back and said, all right, like, let's do this again. And then he held his own at a high level. So he's capable, very capable. And he's one of those, like, I think switching ties into his favor as well if you're going to funnel it into the paint as well too. Like, he's a very, very good post defender. Like, even during the Olympic qualifying tournament with, I mentioned the Slovenia team not having size. Like, he took on the challenge of guarding the Zubats in the post, and he poked the ball loose, pulling the chair a couple times. And, he got scored on a couple times because you're not going to – I mean, if you're living with that as your base defense, you're in a tough spot. That's the reality they were in. The Mavericks are not in that reality. They can have him be an effective post defender when they need it. I think he can – if he's fresh, he can also hold his own well enough. Same with Kyrie Irving. Like, he took on the James Harden challenge. He was guarding a lot of top players, at times in that playoff run as well too. So it's all about like I know some people are trying to pencil in at times where it's like, well, he's not going to be willing to guard that guy. He's not willing to be guarding that guy. But that's also something that we have to see as well. Like, how much of an embrace will someone like a Kyrie Irving have on taking on those challenges? And he's someone that very well picks his spots already offensively. Like, he's very principled in that. Like, he reads the game, finds his advantages, and doesn't tax himself early. Maybe, for all we know, maybe he takes on some challenges as well too. That he had shown, more than capable of doing, during the postseason, but instead doing it during that marathon of the regular season.
I'm going to run through a few more real quick. Joe says, watched a lot of Bam as a young player. Please ask Grant. I'll let you, Joe. If Lively's ceiling has moved more towards a Bam level player than what he was before, a player who had a much lower ceiling.
Yeah, I think to an extent, I think Bam is unique in the sense that he's not necessarily that 7 foot, 2. Like, he's I guess you could say undersized as a 5. And I think that does give him like an advantage as a switch defender. Like, he's got he's a fantastic option out in space because he has that foot speed, but also he's very strong. I'm sure as Joe knows, someone that watched a lot of him. So I think it might be tough to ask for quite that level of switch defensive impact, but I do think Derek Lively, is very agile, especially for his size, and I think you can get a unique level of switch capability for a 7 foot plus defender that you normally wouldn't be asking. So I think in the general concept, I think you can get not necessarily the same style or exact distribution of what you're looking for, but I think because there's just pros and cons. I think you're able to get more rim protection from Derek because of his intangibles, the wingspan, everything that we talked about, the height. That gets you a different style, but I think he is a very, very capable high-level switch defender from what we saw in the playoffs. But also on the other side, Bam is someone who thrives in dribble handoff situations. And I think that's someone that actually he should look to emulate a little bit because you can even find vague similarities between players and situations. With Duncan Robinson, he's had a lot of success in the dribble handoff game with him. Now you have Klay Thompson, who's also a volume, shooting threat as well, where I think, Derek was trusted more and more as a dribble handoff guy, late in the season, kind of like the switching. I'd be very curious to see how he can operate in that. And then also, as we mentioned, with keeping and attacking downhill. I know Bam can do that as well pretty well too. So, I think there's some similarities I see in that respect. So definitely think he's got a tremendous ceiling overall where, I'm sure the Heat would love to have Bam be 7 feet tall and have that crazy wingspan and stuff like that. But Derek Lively does have that luxury. So definitely think we're probably going to be watching a very special player if I had to guess.
I agree. Richard says, any chance that Whaley can still make the team? And could Melvin play this year when Maxey misses a lot of games with a toe or his hair or something else?
Melvin, the second round pick, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Well, I think he's not even going to be in the picture because he's going to be drafted stashed for this year. So I think that'd probably be more of a future option. And they're already kind of in a weird roster crunch right now too, because it still seems like the expectation is Markieff Morris is supposed to be back, but they would have to cut someone. And I mean, I think the
AJ.
AJ would be that. I think that candidate for most logical cut candidate, whatever you want to call it. So they're already in that like kind of weird roster crunch situation right now too, where like you're kind of having that on roster mentor guy, not necessarily someone that's frequently going to be getting minutes or part of the rotation by any means.
Yeah, what he pretty much has. He said he's in Vegas right now with the team.
I think that probably would be like, I know he has a great relationship with like Kyrie, and his leadership was important for the team throughout the year and last year as well. So I think that's probably the reasoning. You're probably looking for the same like kind of presence, veteran leadership, and doesn't hurt to have some of that for sure on a team. And I think at least they do have more of it with the rotation players as well too, because I think that's a big draw of Klay Thompson. He's someone who's seen a lot in the league, and he even saw Luka in the Western Conference Finals early in his career as well too. So a lot of experience, veteran leadership potential as well too from more of the additions that they made to the roster.
I'm going to read this one, be the last one, Relle, because I know we're already 11:30 your time. Johnny B, a Glow member, he says, I saw a video saying OKC was on a higher tier than the Mavs. I think it's BS. What do y'all think? I'll let Grant attack that first.
Well, I think for OKC, like they have a very impressive ability to just avoid injuries. Like last year, they were just so healthy all the time, and I think they've done a great job of building just like a really well-oiled machine for the regular season. Like I still think they can be like a threat in the playoffs, but so I'm not saying like this is like a regular season only team by any means. But I think just when you're talking about regular season, and that's probably where the rankings are oriented for. Like they've added even more to kind of what they've had. Like Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso are great regular season role players to add to an already very impressive team. And I think like I'll have to read it to see what the psychology was for it. But I think if you look at the Mavs, kind of I guess you could say typical knock you would say is you're probably expecting Kyrie to miss 15, 20-ish games. Like if you look at his career track record, I know he finished a lot. Like last season, he played a crazy amount of games in a row compared to like, what his like first time like 2016 type stuff. Like I think like 26 in a row, 27, something like that before they, I guess, ended that streak because they'd already qualified, for the playoffs, had the 5th seed. We didn't benefit them to play key players. So definitely we can't predict that he's going to miss those games, but I think probably part of the baked in psychology is that like, Kyrie might miss 15, 20 and then like, like I guess that's probably most of it. And then Oklahoma City may not have that anyone that stands out. I know Chet missed his whole rookie year, but like he was very durable last year. I think if he didn't play all 82, I think he was like really close to playing every single game last year.
I think he did.
Because I kept seeing like why is it so important to you to be like I guess you say Iron Man or whatever, like the guy that like plays all the games, and then that kept being a storyline. So I think that's probably mostly where you're seeing the great faith in Oklahoma City as like the regular season team, but they also are a great team. Like they improved, I think, on their weaknesses. Like I think Josh Giddey wasn't a clean fit for them. I think you can hide that more in the regular season. He's more of an asset in the regular season than the postseason, but now they have like an idea. We're more battle tested. We know what we needed to have fixed, and they got great regular season role players for that. So that's probably where we're seeing that from, but definitely think the Mavericks are very well equipped, as we've discussed with their depth, to withstand any injuries, anything of that nature for, like a stretch, like if Kyrie's out or anything like that. So definitely think it's going to be a situation where the Mavericks are competing for like a 1 through 4, like seed, ideally getting that home court advantage because they're all. I mean, also this is their identity from the start of the season too. That wasn't the case last year. They just had a great end run. That's a very different reality when you have more continuity with the top of your roster. Luka and Kyrie, this is their second training camp together, and then now you're like you're putting together like, oh well, we know it works with having multiple rim protectors, having this all this and that, all that stuff. Like just going in with more answers than questions, I think goes a long way for sure.
I've been saying it too. Like go in with the roster that you want to go into the season with. Don't wait till the trade deadline to finally get that roster. That way you have your continuity and all that stuff going into training camp. So I agree.
And I don't think so. I think OKC got better. I think they'll be fine in the regular season. I don't think that move for Hartenstein actually helps them with us though, because I think with him being a $30 million player, the way they played before, they were kind of like a baby Boston Celtics in a way, with Chet being on the perimeter and all. I think with Hartenstein there now, is he a $30 million decoy now? Like, doesn't he play? And if he's on the floor, doesn't that mean Derek Lively gets to stay in the paint? So you actually negate, like, that was the benefit of Derek Lively being able to play against them, that like he stayed in the paint and was able to stay on the floor. The Celtics got him off or made it difficult for him to play and do what he does best. So I don't know. I just worry about Isaiah Hartenstein giving him $30 million. I think he will be good for them for the regular season. But like I say, if they match up, and it's all about matchups, they may not match up against us again. Who knows? But if they match up against us, you don't take Derek Lively off the floor, which means the Mavericks are able to do what they want to do. And who's to say that Alex Caruso doesn't miss any games?
That's true.
Games too. So, I think he is better than Giddey. But like I said, when's the last time he's played a whole season or something close to it?
And he's over 30. So
yeah.
But yeah. We definitely appreciate everybody joining us today, man. We definitely appreciate Grant coming through, man, stopping by and spending some time with us, man, talking Dallas Mavericks. We definitely appreciate all of y'all, man. I know we got almost 1,300 people watching, so we definitely appreciate that. Listen, man, if you guys are new to the channel, if you're into Dallas Maverick content, go ahead and do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button, man, and join us here as we get ready for the season. Like Grant said, we're about a month away from Media Day. And we're about a little bit over a month from training camp. So training camp is going to be right around the corner, y'all. So please join us, man, here on We Talk Mavs, man. Go ahead and become a member, but become a subscriber to the channel. But you also can become a member of the channel, like the members here on the channel who sent their questions in, just by simply hitting the join button right there next to the subscribe button. If you're on an iPhone, you got to go through the Safari desktop version of YouTube, find our channel, and hit join that way if you want to become a member of the channel. Also, too, everybody, please hit that like button. Also, for the people who are on Grant's channel, follow Grant's channel at Grant Afseth on his channel. Also, you can follow him on Twitter at Grant Afseth. We got all this information down in the description box, y'all. So go ahead and follow him on all of his socials. Also, too, guys, if you guys into geek content, man, you can follow me on my other channel, Cuz We Geeks, where we talk about all things in the geek culture involving movies and television. I don't know when our next show is. Going to probably be Sunday, if I had to guess. If not Sunday, probably Saturday evening, one of the two. Me and my cousin Will, man, we talk about all things in the geek culture involving movies and television, like Star Wars, Marvel, DC, all that type of stuff. So you can follow us over there, guys. Still trying to make it to our second goal of our 500. Still, like I said, still a young channel trying to grow. Can definitely use y'all's help with that. And let's see if there's anything else. Kings, anything else I'm missing?
First, Grant, what you up to? Plug yourself real quick. I know Ralph said the basis, but anything else you got going on that you want to tell people?
Yeah, for sure. Currently, my writing is on a Substack, DallasHoopsJournal.com or Substack.com, whatever the hell the URL actually is. But I'm working on putting that on a more just standalone website. I'll probably turn that Dallas Hoops Journal thing into a newsletter, where I just not only my work, but other people's stuff. I'm hey, Mark Cuban was on Jalen Brunson's podcast. Might want to check that out if you're interested. And, stuff like that. Just give basic updates, maybe some more personal content, if you will. A little bit of oh, I had this on my camera from the game or whatever. Here's some stuff from Bulls versus Mavericks and random stuff like that. There's no real great way to do that on a website where you're putting an article, but Substack's kind of cool, for that type of stuff. But definitely it's free to subscribe, because I'm not really trying to paywall that stuff. I'm going to migrate it over to that website idea that I described. So definitely, I think at the start of the season, I'll have that on just DallasHoopsJournal.com. But right now you have to go to Substack. I have that pinned in my Twitter bio right now. And then I'll have a lot of content before the season as well. I'm going to be doing some analysis stuff on the defense, things that we have talked about, with video clips, and, probably trying to put those into YouTube style breakdowns as well too. So definitely plenty as the, stretch run before the training camp gets going, and a lot throughout the preseason as well too.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess share more now and then, on our way to our next goal, our fifth goal of 3K subscribers. We're real close to it. All the folks that are watching on any other media, X, anything else, do us a favor, come to YouTube and subscribe real quick and hit like if you could. But other than that, appreciate Grant as always. You're always welcome, Grant. Appreciate you coming back again. And go Mavs as always.
Yeah, thanks for
Yes,
having me.
sir.
I appreciate it.
No problem, man. No problem. Listen, man, with all that being said, it is your boys, Relle and King of We Talk Mavs, where we talk Dallas Mavs from a fan's perspective. We'll be back here on Tuesday, Glow Yard, so y'all guys can come on back here on Tuesday, as y'all already know. We'll be back, same Mav time, same Mav channel.
Yes,
Go
sir.
Mavs. And we out.
Peace.